just drank 32 ounces of water before I started too. Ready? I think we are live. Let me. Alrighty. Hi everyone. Welcome to Hot Topic Tuesday. I went back and watched a little bit of not all of it, because I really can't stand the sound of my voice. I gotta stop saying and I gotta stop doing that a lot. So it was a little weird. Anyway, welcome to Hot Topic Tuesday. April, this is Coach Trish, and we are diving in today on hypothyroidism. And for those of y'all who subscribe to our newsletter, we talked about this week, last month, last week we dived in on cortisol and the adrenals, and now we're kind of transitioning into the month of March for the thyroid, and all things the thyroid, which we have like a whole whopping month, because the thyroid is so important. But with that being said, without further ado, we're going to get started. And today is all about hypothyroidism, and which I'm going to say is probably definitely the most common. Like, it's very rare. I've coached for over a decade, and I would say I have had maybe
I've had lots
less. I've
of
had.
thyroid.
I'm gonna say probably it was probably maybe less than five. I've had a couple with hyperthyroid, but it's very, very rare.
Oh
Um,
yeah, I've only had one hyperthyroid. I've definitely had lots of hypothyroid, but the
oh yeah,
hyperthyroid.
yeah. No, super, super, super common. Exactly.
You
So
know what I think that could be too? Because hyperthyroid is a whole different set of symptoms, and one of them is usually weight loss, you know?
oh,
So
100%.
I don't know. The person was already in coaching when she got diagnosed. She did start losing some weight that, obviously we were doing things to like make that happen, but it was starting to get a little like rapid. So
Mhm.
she was diagnosed with hyperthyroid. But I feel like hypothyroid, because the symptoms are a lot more of the fatigue and like fat loss resistance, probably people are seeking out more coaching.
Agree. And it's actually it's the most common. It's
Yeah.
much more common than hyperthyroidism. But that with that being said, hypothyroidism is a condition where the thyroid gland doesn't produce enough thyroid hormone, which is responsible for regulating our metabolism. And I think most of us are average 30s to 50s. We're in kind of that range, perimenopausal, most of us. And it's something that we it's almost like a mystery of the whole metabolism thing. Like, do I need to repair my metabolism? What about my metabolism? Like, I can't lose weight, or I can't, like when I try to eat more food I gain weight or whatever. So the metabolism itself is like super, super important, which is essentially is like energy balance in our body. Some of the symptoms, some of the most common symptoms that most women or most people in general suffer from are fatigue, the weight gain, cold intolerance, hair loss, mood changes. Those are some of the common ones. But I will say the most common is probably that I hear the most is the weight gain out of nowhere. And I hear more often than not like hair loss, because that kind of is like alarming, like you start losing hair, and you're kind of freaked out of, oh my gosh, what's going on. Now, the standard typical management for hypothyroidism is typically going to involve some type of synthetic thyroid hormone replacement. Um, but with that being said, Trish and I are going to kind of dive into some of the potential causes of hypothyroidism, and then also talk about some natural modalities to support hypothyroidism. Now, some of the potential causes of hypothyroidism, first and foremost, the autoimmune condition like Hashimoto's thyroiditis is one of the most common. So more often than not, someone that ends up getting diagnosed with hypothyroidism, if they actually do further testing, they may see that they do have an issue with Hashimoto's. Not all the time, but it is fairly common. Another Another main cause, and Trish and I were actually talking about this prior to starting the Facebook Live, is nutrient deficiencies. I am a y'all know me, like I'm all about the gut and all about poop and all that jazz, but I am a big believer that the gut plays a significant role, just digestion in general, with the thyroid function, just because the thyroid is so nutrient dependent, on certain nutrients like zinc and iodine and B vitamins, that, when there is, a high level of digestive like dysbiosis within the gut, that's going to in turn, affect nutrient absorption, which can domino down, to potentially causing the thyroid to be slow. Also, other potential causes, stress. Can't forget stress. That's always, an underlying thing. And of course, stress can be from, the gut. It can be from lifestyle. It can be from environmental factors. But all of these can, I personally think that they're all interconnected with the gut and hormone balance in general. Now, some of the standard testing to check and see, like if you are experiencing some symptoms. It's funny. I don't know about you, Trish, but it's funny. I have, several clients that they'll tell me some of the symptoms or issues that they're having. And I'm like, well, when's the last time you had, comprehensive blood panel, done, or a thyroid panel? And it's kind of like, I don't know, like 5 years. I'm like, really? Like, why are you waiting that long to get things done? But anyway, a thyroid panel too, I would specifically, which most standard doctors, unless you have some symptoms and you get referred to an endocrinologist, they're just typically going to test your TSH and your T4. But if you really want to get in depth, having the TSH, the T4, the T3, as well as the antibodies, can give you, more of an in-depth idea as to what's going on. So it is very important that, rather than, everyone diagnosing themselves and, figuring out what is going on, or just taking a random supplement, that you actually have some labs done to be able to, to pinpoint and know exactly. And I do want to add that Trish and I both can actually order these labs. Now, Trish is going to take over on the part of some of the natural modalities, which obviously nutrition and lifestyle is like so important. And those are like two things, like nutrition in general, and of course the stress management, are like major keystones that can help, improve thyroid function. So with that further ado, Trish is going to take that over.
So definitely, yeah, what April was saying about like the thyroid being very nutrient dependent, that means that you can actually make a lot of headway with a lot of nutrition and lifestyle interventions. Like it is not rare at all anymore, especially because we do more of our ranges in the functional for thyroid, and that is a tighter range than the Western medical, that we see a lot of like what I would just say sluggish thyroid. Like, do they need medication? Like maybe not, but there's so many things we can try in the lifestyle nutrition department, like before somebody needs to get to that point, which is kind of cool. Most people would rather do that than get on medication for sure. So I have a list. I think it's about 7 things that can be really helpful on the lifestyle nutrition side. And the first, this comes up. I think this is a first for everything: eat a balanced diet. You guys probably can recite that one on most things we talk about these days. But particularly, April mentioned a couple key nutrients that are thyroid supportive. So foods rich in iodine, selenium, zinc, and vitamin D. So those are going to be one of the key ones. So if you have, a tracking app, it might be a good idea to check out like where you're falling on some of those nutrients. But just for example, like Brazil nuts. I think something like 4 to 5 Brazil nuts will give you all the selenium you need in a day.
Okay.
So that's a
But I do want to add real quick without interrupting, but I'm interrupting. So without interrupting, and while I'm interrupting, you can overdose on Brazil nuts and Brazilian nuts, and they are very nuts in general are easy to overeat. So have your almonds on the side that you mindlessly eat or that you snack on, and just do your 2 to 3 Brazilian nuts a day.
Yeah, you don't need many at all. And again, yeah, very high in fat, good stuff for sure, but you don't want to like overdo that for sure. But other things like legumes, those are really good. Obviously, whole grains. And if you can tolerate, I know a lot of our people don't do a lot of dairy products, but you can find some, decent nutrients, and those are some of the substitutions. Seafood and seaweed too are also good. Seafood may be another one that, higher allergen, but you can definitely look in a tracking app and just see kind of where you're landing on some of those things. And there are some good thyroid specific supplements that do have just, more of the selenium, iodine, copper, zinc in them too. That can be helpful if you're finding you're really not able to meet it with food, but try with food first, of course. So the second one, manage stress. That's probably the other obvious second thing to almost everything we talk about. So chronic stress obviously can negatively affect thyroid function. And we see a lot of people coming in that, have a sluggish thyroid or maybe have diagnosis of thyroid issues. And sometimes they'll talk about like a very stressful event or over exercising, under eating, kind of like leading into that. So it's not uncommon to see like some of those lifestyle factors contributing to a thyroid not being the healthiest for sure. So,
And I do want to add, sorry for interrupting again, but I do want to add that it is actually very common. And, if you talk to a lot of women, in general, and even like a lot of males, but there is a lot of connection with the hypothyroidism with chronic dieting.
mhm,
Just dieting too long, being in a calorie deficit, aka, prolonged periods of stress on the body, linked to, all of a sudden I got diagnosed with hypothyroidism. What happened?
yeah.
And there's a very common link there with just chronic dieting and just being in an energy deficit for too long. So
Like a like real life kind of case study. One of my good friends who has Hashimoto's and was diagnosed, she kind of tells me that, beforehand going to all these exercise classes, feeling great, but overdoing it on workouts, like small children, so stressful in that, stay at home mom, that type of thing. And, for a bit, she was feeling really good and then just started to crash and burn. And, so I don't know. I mean, I guess some of the stressful events can like lead to that. I'm sure it's like a little, feedback loop that isn't, the most
agreed.
for sure. But so stress management techniques are going to be very key. Meditation, deep breathing exercises, yoga, activities you even enjoy, taking walks, those type of things are all good to help manage stress. And, if you do have any kind of thyroid issues, sluggish or diagnosed, all of those things will be helpful in kind of managing it for sure. Number three is get adequate sleep. That kind of goes hand in hand with managing our stress and taking, good, healthy control of our bodies anyways. So adequate sleep is crucial for overall health, including the thyroid function, and aiming for about 7 to 9 hours a night is probably going to be good, and quality sleep too. So, maybe a nice little bedtime routine, morning routine, just eating good quality calories and balanced diet throughout the day. So you're supported in that way too. Number four, exercise regularly. I know I just did a case study where someone was overdoing it, but nice balanced exercise is always good. So regular physical activity does help boost our metabolism anyways, which will help support our thyroid function. And you don't have to get too crazy with it. Just choose things you like. Like we're huge proponents of strength training, especially for women and perimenopausal women. That's always going to be good. Obviously, keeping our muscle mass on the up and up is going to be helpful to our metabolism too. So regular exercise is good.
I was just going to add and just keep the reminder that quality is always going to trump quantity. So,
Yep. Yeah. The bad stories we hear are always like taking something good and going a little bit too crazy with it. And exercise can be one of them. We all know that. We've all probably, I mean, I'm sure April and I have had issues with that one too in the past.
well, it's, well, more's got to be better, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Uh,
Yeah. Just we can always do more. All right, so number five, limit exposure to toxins. So, certain environmental toxins can definitely interfere with our thyroid function. So, minimizing kind of our endocrine disruptors, pesticides, heavy metals, plastics, things like that can definitely be helpful too and help support a healthy thyroid.
So
Um,
I wanted to bring up that I've interrupted at the end of everything that you said, but I wanted to bring up that Trish and I were talking about this, that for thyroid conversion, 60% of thyroid conversion happens in the gut, 20% in the liver, and the other 20% within the kidneys and tissues. But the liver, I think we talked about this a while back, like it is the most unsexy hormone, but it is so, so important, as well as the gut, because it plays a role within the gut, it plays a role within the hormones, but so that kind of piggybacks off of Trish talking about, the environmental factors, and I think a lot of people are just misconstrued with what does that mean? Like what does that mean? Like environmental factors. It's like looking at the food, like what she said, the pesticides. Like if you can't, I was talking to a functional client the other day and I made the recommendation. I'm like, if you can't afford to eat organic, then which and some people can, I mean, everything's expensive nowadays, like holy cow, like gas is like close to $4 a gallon. But if you can't afford to eat organic, at least buy organic for the Dirty Dozen. And if for the Dirty Dozen foods, which are everybody can look up the Dirty Dozen on the EWG website, strawberry, spinach. Basically, these are the most common foods that typically have the most pesticides. So if you can't afford organic altogether, at least invest in organic for the Dirty Dozen, but the foods that we eat, the cosmetics, what we clean our house with, it's, do you live in an urban area? Do you need a air filtration system on your house? Like, is your house really, really old? Do you have lead paint in your house? Do you, like it just goes on and on, so everybody's different, but taking a step back and looking at, the potential things. And I think it's natural for us to want to, we kind of get like our mind made up about something and we just want to do a complete 180 and overhaul everything, but we don't, not everybody has the resources and the time and the energy to do all that. And I would suggest looking at the big hitters again, like the Dirty Dozen. Look at the big hitters and say, what can I change? What's the small change that I can make that could potentially make an impact? And then just go from there rather than trying to completely overhaul your whole life. Sometimes it's a matter of, like, I got on my son when he was home from spring break about he was buying milk jugs from the grocery store and drinking like a gallon of water every day, but he was reusing that same milk jug and filling it up at school. And I was like, please stop doing that. Like, I will buy you an insulated cup. Like, please stop doing that. Please. Like, and the worst part was that he was reusing it, after it was like in his car and, and
yes, and yeah, stuff like
yes,
that.
yes.
Yeah. And if you I haven't mentioned Costco in a long time. So you guys know anytime I get to mention Costco, it makes me very happy. But when, April was talking about the fruits and vegetables, I think our assumption is like those always have to be fresh too. And I mean, I am obsessed with all the frozen vegetables that you can get at Costco, like the frozen broccoli. They were out of my green beans this past week, which is so weird. Like, how are they out of green beans? How are your dogs even eating, April? I know she does the dog food with the green beans. We should do a whole pet dietary.
Green bean diet. Hey, it has worked. I have helped people
I
get their
know.
weight down so much just by
Then
the
we
green bean
still
diet.
use it. He loves frozen green beans, but so yeah, don't just assume you have to have all those things fresh. Like get the frozen stuff too, and that could be like a budget saver also, but healthier. They have a lot of organic options. Okay, so number six, I kind of mentioned this briefly. You can consider herbal supplements. So again, if you are struggling with dietary intake, with getting some of the nutrients that are supportive, you could definitely do kind of, I think the one I usually use is like, it's literally called Thyro Boost. And it has like the selenium, the copper, the iodine, just some things that are supportive. So, that can be an option too if you need a little extra support there. And vitamin D3, you got to have your vitamin D 5,000 IUs every day. You know, unless you're really, really low, you could start with a little more, but that's our plug for D3 there. And this will be April's favorite, prioritize gut health. So, you know, again, because it is so nutrient dependent, if your gut, if you're not absorbing very well, and, you know, even if you're not getting the nutrients you need, that's another place to look. Then really, really focusing on gut health, maybe just checking out and make sure, you know, you could do a GI map. You could just talk to us about symptoms you're having. We could try to troubleshoot that way. But gut health is going to be super, super important. You know, maybe looking into probiotics or probiotic rich food, or maybe even doing like a gut protocol that could be really helpful. If you were to talk to us and you tell us your symptoms, we can pretty much kind of say it's a gut thing. You know, it's most of the time a lot of everything, but we can kind of pinpoint and say, like, from what you're telling me, it sounds like we really need to start at the gut, and then that can in turn help so many things, and that could improve thyroid function if you're on the sluggish side and you're,
Agree. You know,
you know,
and the big thing, and you know, it all kind of comes to full circle, and it makes total sense that, you know, as we age, our stomach acid naturally starts decreasing. It starts decreasing. So then in turn, okay, we're hitting perimenopause, menopause. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, our metabolism seems so slow, you know, or getting diagnosed with hypothyroidism, whatever the case may be. But stomach acid is naturally decreasing. In turn, we can eat all the spinach that you want, but if you're not absorbing the nutrients from that, you know, if we lack stomach acid, you know, we're not breaking down the protein, you know, you know, we're not absorbing the nutrients properly. So in turn, that's going to domino into other areas, you know, and I've got someone at my gym who hired me, and it's funny because he spent $3,000 in going to all these GI doctors because he could not get any answers as to, he had a scope done, he had a colonoscopy done, as to why he could not get rid of reflux. And I told him, I was like, let's run a GI map. Let's see what's going on first. And I told him, I was like, I'm just gonna, which I know him, and normally I wouldn't bet somebody. You know, I was like, I'll bet you $100. I'll bet you $100 that you actually like stomach acid. You actually like stomach acid, and it's not an issue of too much acid. And I told him, I was like, I bet you have an issue with histamines. And sure enough, I was right. And one of the very first things that I did was I gave him digestive enzymes with HCl, with hydrochloric acid in it. And he was, you know, he had been on protein pump inhibitors for years with no avail and no improvement.
to be
And
another thing
he
there.
starts actually adding acid to the stomach to help break his food down. And guess what? He
Yeah.
has no reflux anymore. You know, and
Yeah.
it's kind of crazy how that happens. You know, we just assume that you have acid, or you have things coming up that, you know, it's because you have too much acid, but a lot of times it's actually the opposite. So, but anyway, again, you know, like what Trish said, you know, talk to us. We, you know, obviously doing like a GI map is going to be smartest thing to do because you can have like exact answers. But if money's an option, there are lots of strategies that you can do, you know, to, you know, kind of tiptoe around that. And if there is issues going on that you can heal, you know, you can still heal it without, you know, you're guessing more, but you know, it's not, you know, it's not as cost, you know, it's not as costly as the other stuff. So with that being said, thank y'all for attending, and we will see y'all next week as we continue on the thyroid journey for this month. So,
Have a good time. We'll figure it out.
y'all have a great week.